Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Patrick Dunn. I am the Executive Director here at the New Haven Pride Center in New Haven, Connecticut. Thank you so much all for joining us for our Bi Plus Talk, a conversation with Sheila Lambert. We are super excited for this program and today's conversation. This is part 2 of our new series, Bi Plus Talks, which is meant to explore and talk about the experience of biphobia within our very own community. And more on that in a minute, but first I want to do a quick land acknowledgement. So with that said, before we begin today's program, we'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we are hosting this event. The New Haven Pride Center was founded and operates on the traditional lands of the Mohegan, the Manchetucket Pequot, the Eastern Pequot, the Shattuck, the Golden Hill Pawcasset, the Niantic, and the Quinnipiac peoples. We hope from wherever you are, you will take a moment to acknowledge and honor the Native peoples whose land you occupy and the history of the place that you're in. You can find out more about Native lands at native/land.ca. So again, thank you all so much for being here with us today. This, as I mentioned already, this is the part 2 of our new Bi Plus Talk series that brings together local and national Bi Plus voices to deconstruct phobic language, challenge bias norms, and work to eliminate biphobia throughout the larger LGBTQ plus community. This program is part of this new series that will be led by the center throughout our year. And we look forward to continuing to chat with various folks from our own community and from the national stage as part of this conversation. Sorry, I am tripping over my own voices today. With that said, let me really quickly introduce our incredible speaker today, Sheila, who is the director of the Bisexual Book Awards and the Bi Writers Association, and is the editor of the anthology of Bisexual Poetry Project and the Best Bi Short Stories, Bisexual Fiction, which was a finalist for the Lammy Awards, the Bisexual Book Awards, and the Rainbow Awards. So with that said, it is my pleasure to welcome to our virtual stage, Sheila Lambert. Hi, Sheila.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
We are so excited to have you and really excited for a lot of reasons because we have lots of fun things that we get to talk about. With that said, I'd really quickly want to do a shout out to everyone who's watching. Thank you for joining us. And if you do have any questions or want to share a thought throughout the conversation, feel free to comment from wherever you are watching. We do have a comment section that we get to watch, so we get to see all those comments coming in, and we appreciate your questions, support, and shout outs as we go along. And we already have our first hello from Alejandro. So Sheila, I want to start from a place of saying to you, how do you define bisexual identity, bi plus identity, and all of the various other identities that fall under the Bi Plus umbrella? What is your personal definition?
I should have pulled up my media guide, which is, all that kind of stuff we have on our website, where it says handouts, and what would be my definition? Having the ability to be drawn to, whether it's romantically or sexually or companionately, a person of other genders than your own. Some people might have a double identification of bisexual and pansexual, which I do because, I've been attracted to people of multiple genders, multiple presentations, and, some people just have attractions, male or female. That's what their feelings are. And some of us have, ventured more into the pansexual realm. But, I came out when I was 16 in 1973, I think. I don't know. It's a long time ago now. So, you should know I'm disabled and I just turned 65. So I lose my train of thought sometimes or lose words. And, you know, Patrick, if you see me groping for a word, please put me out of my misery.
I will happily do that, and just say, just to put it out there, I am in my mid-30s, and I also grapple with trying to find words sometimes, as you saw while I did my intro. So we will have a great little chat here where we will help finish each other's sentences as necessary.
Perfect. Love it. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Sheila, for that that definition. I think that, you know, bi plus identity is so broad. Well, the umbrella of bi plus identities are so broad, and underneath that, there's so many different identities, and obviously intersections with gender and gender identity. And so I do like to ask that first question of, like, how do you approach bisexuality, pansexuality, your own identity?
Yeah, well, I prefer to use the word bi because people get hung up on the sex inside of bisexuality, and they then tend to you know, especially people who don't know much about bisexuality, they tend to think that it's just all about sex, whereas to me it's about so many other different things. It's about community, it's about having a culture, it's about having you know, friends from that community. It's about things like events like this, discussion groups. I'm from New York, and By Request has so many discussion groups and other events that they do. So, you know, I feel really lucky. And then everything going virtual, you know, that's how I got to know Joshua and you in the New Haven Pride Center, and, you know, groups in California, that one that I joined in on yesterday. You know, so our virtual horizons have been broadened, even though, you know, well, I don't know about there, but here we're still not meeting in public in person yet. Our center is going to be closed till next year.
Yeah. Yeah, we are not virtual. We still virtual here, and I do want to give a shout out to Josh, who helped put this program together today and connected us. Josh runs a lot of our Bi Plus programming here at the center, and also a big shout out to Sherry, who's watching, who said hello to us, who is an incredible activist that we would be lost without in our state, who is also a big champion of our programming here at the center. So shout out to both of them, and for creating the virtual spaces that really has created opportunity to connect all of us. And speaking of, I'm gonna pick a word out. You talked about community and creating community, and so one of the ways that you did that was through the Bisexual Book Awards, which I will say I pay attention to ever since I was made aware of them actually by Sherry, you know, a number of years ago, as we look to expand our own library here at the center, and we want to, you know, promote through our humanities programs, you know, authors of many different identities, right? So how did you found and get the Bisexual Book Awards going?
Well, I was doing a lot of activism at the time, but it seemed like it consisted of basically, you know, why aren't you including us in the name of your, you know, fill in the blank, in the text of your fill in the blank, you know, and you know, for me, there was only so long I could keep doing that over and over, and at that point, we're not really getting that much change to happen. And I'm like, you know, this is kind of a negative cycle I'm in here, and it's not that much fun. And I'm really, at the time, I was getting into freelance writing, and I wanted like a writing community of other bi people who I could ask questions of. How do I deal with this or that problem that has come up, or negotiation that I have to deal with? And so I was starting that up, and then someone came to us with, I guess, back in the days when BiNet USA had a good reputation, and we were all on an email list, and someone complained to us that the Lammy Awards did not have a bisexual book award. So, we looked into that. And so we started lobbying the Lammy Awards to add that, because they had a transgender book award. But, they were like, it came back to us with, well, only 2 bi books are published a year, so you don't need an award. And they had a rule that you had to have 10 to have a category. So me and some other people went online and were searching for bisexual books. We managed to get together a category of 10 books. And me and Wendy Curry, who was then, I think, vice president of BiNet USA, we were asked to help judge it. Plus, they threw in a couple other judges, and we got to present the award that year, and that's how it started. But then at a certain point, we're just kind of bumping up against a lot of rules and regulations that didn't really serve us or the writers who were writing these books. And so people have been asking me, to start our own awards. And I'm like, why reinvent the wheel? But then at a certain point, it seemed to me that we really needed to.
Yeah.
So we kind of had a last minute, making it happen very quickly as a test run. And, the authors were really, really grateful that someone was doing this for them, putting on a reading, giving them awards, a statuette, to hold and put on the mantle. And so this is our 10th annual season that we're just starting.
And those are the awards that will be given out in 2022. This is the season, right?
I'm sorry, what?
The next, when you say our season, those are the 22 awards that you're going to be.
No, it will be giving out the awards and doing the announcement of who won and our big reading in 22, but it's the 21 books.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like the Oscars. It's the year before, right?
That's like the Oscars.
Yes, it's exactly like the Oscars. And just for anybody who's watching that's not familiar, what time of year do you do this event?
Usually in June.
So everybody gets to tune in June.
The first pandemic year, it got pushed to September.
I was going to say, I thought it was a little bit later that first pandemic.
Yeah. Year. Well, I canceled it because I'm like, we can't do this. Mm-hmm. And I had never even been to a Zoom meeting at that point. But then I went to the Toronto Bisexual Art Festival and the UK Bi Conference, and I'm like, maybe we can do this. And I found someone to help me with the technical part, and we were able to do it. But instead of handing out awards, because we'd already announced them, we did a Q&A, which was very, very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, we had some amazing questions, and the authors were really like bonding. Oh, what do you do in this situation? What do you do? It was fantastic. But
well, and I just want to just say, in case there's anybody watching that doesn't know what the Lammy Awards are, those are the Lamba Literacy Awards. I just wanted to say that. I meant to say that when you were original, but I didn't want to interrupt your story. So.
Well, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, the Lambda Literary Awards.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, just in case someone didn't know what a Lammy was, that we did say that. But that's exciting that, 10th anniversary, that's a big milestone.
It really is. I just couldn't believe it. And because when I started, it was so tentative, will this even go past 1 year?
Right.
That's why year 1 and year 2, I never called it the annual Bisexual Book Awards. I didn't want to jinx it, and I wasn't sure if it would go any further than that.
Yeah. Well, it did, because now we're at 10.
Yeah, it's just kind of snuck up on me. But one thing I had been thinking about doing since before we ever started the book awards was to do a Bi Writers conference to help Bi Writers get published.
That's amazing.
So you can take workshops on, brushing up your writing skills, panels on how to pitch, editors and agents, and how to do a query letter, all that kind of stuff. And one-on-ones with the editors and agents who could maybe get your book published. And also, one of the questions that I constantly see is, okay, I got this book published. How do I sell it? How do I publicize this book? I can't afford a publicist.
Right.
Do this for me. What do I do? What am I supposed to do? People are, tend to be very mystified. So we're going to have.
Well, Sheila, you let me know when you want to do this, because I have wanted to do a literary festival. So I come from a creative writing background. Actually, one of my degree is in creative writing. And I've been wanting to create like a queer version of the Edinburgh Book Festival here in New Haven. So you let me know, because I will dedicate a whole section of that festival to this conference if you're down to bring it to New Haven.
I would love to. I mean, we're planning on doing ours virtually, so that people can attend from anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
This whole virtual thing has opened up so much for us, because before it was only whoever could get to New York.
Right.
And not everyone can afford to hop on a plane or has the time, and pay for a hotel room or impose upon friends or relatives somewhere to stay. And, it was kind of exciting that more and more people were actually doing that. And sometimes it wasn't just because they were coming for the Lammy Awards, and so they'll, come a day or two early for us. Some people were coming just for us because we invited them. So
I want to tease something you just said there. Not to leave the book, the awards, but I want to say. So you talked about the idea of like community building was difficult because everybody was having to come to the festival, and the online has opened up a lot of space. So my question to you is that what can we do? So as a community, the largest segment of our community, I think collectively we all know and understand, is bi+ folks. People who identify under the bi umbrella represent the largest percentage of our community. And why do you think it is that it's so hard for bi community members to find those connections and find those spaces, when theoretically, as the largest segment, it should be easier, right? What do you think some of the challenges are that create that lack?
Well, when I was living in New Jersey by the beach half the year, back when I had money, I found that in that area, even though it was so close to New York, it was very small town. And, the amount of people in the town I was living in were about the same amount of people who live on the block that I live in New York City. So people feel much more exposed and concerned. I think a lot of times bi people are raising families. They're scared about what's going to happen if their family finds out. Will they try to take their children away? I know when I did a workshop on parenting years ago in when we had a big international BICON in at Harvard. Most of the questions that I got were about that, that fear. And so I think a lot of times when people are raising families, they don't have that much time to think about themselves. So I think, what was that?
I'm blocking someone who's spamming our feed.
Oh. Okay. Well, where was I?
Sorry, I just totally distracted both of us. But I wanted to get rid of this spammer that was dropping porn into our chat. We were talking about connecting people, and you know what? I lost the word too.
It seemed like most of the people there, until they raised their kids, and the kid either they got, divorced, or the kids went off to college, they didn't really have time to explore their orientation, right. And they didn't feel it would be accepted in their family, in their community. And so until that happened, and they had some time alone to really think, that's when they started really coming out to themselves more and looking for community.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, and just to say that, while the chain of events you just described could easily be attributed to a bi+ person who might be in a heteronormative relationship, I think that that's true on either side, right? Like, I think of Josh and I've had this conversation of kind of the erasure of his identity as a bisexual man who's in a relationship with a man. And the assumption, oh, you're gay, and and like the complete erasure from within our community in his direction. I think that can be the story you're told could be applied to many different relationships, not just a heteronormative one.
Very true, because there's also homonormative, and people, pressure in that community to conform.
Do you think that's changing at all?
A little bit, but not that much. Mm-hmm. I think that organizations and institutions are changing because they feel more of a sense of responsibility, mm-hmm. That they have to, behave in a more responsible way maybe than they did in the past. Mm-hmm. But individuals and groups of friends, they don't really feel the need to change their opinions, right, or imposing those opinions on other people, even if it might be hurtful. So, I think there's a lot of pressure not, to fudge your pronouns, to not use the B word, to, maybe it's easier around your partner, or maybe it's not. But I think a lot of times around the partner's friends, mm-hmm. It's not so easy.
Is there, do you think that, so as someone who is monosexual myself, but is in a relationship with someone who is not monosexual, because my partner identifies as fluid. He doesn't like any of the labels, so he just is, I'm me and that's who I am, and I like who I like, and leave me alone, basically.
Well, that's a very that's a big segment of our community.
Yeah,
who feel like that.
What are something that maybe I could do as a monosexual that would help combat some of what we're talking about, as an ally, as a comrade, whatever the right word you feel is, what's something that like someone like me could do to make sure that I'm supporting my partner or supporting a friend or a relative or someone, right?
Well, I guess to notice if your friends are putting any pressure on your partner to conform in that way. Whether your partner feels pressure, whether someone is putting it on them or not. Sometimes it's hard to tell, I mean, obviously your attitude is much better than a lot of people's, because a lot of people were like, well, be yourself around me, but when my friends are around, don't embarrass me, and you're obviously not saying that.
No,
So,
definitely not.
I would think that's really helpful right there. But I mean, I suppose you could ask your partner, do you ever feel pressure, when my friends are around or when we're at the center, to fudge anything, to behave differently, to not, to conform to the gay norm.
Well, and that's helpful. I not to out her, but my little sister is also bi. I think she uses bi. She might use pan. I'm not sure, to be completely honest, which maybe makes me a bad brother.
It really runs in the family, huh?
We just got all the queerness in my family. My mom always used to joke that she only married my dad. My little sister and I have different parents, but she only married my dad because he was the only straight man she knew. So there was, but it's been really awesome watching her blossom with her. She's been becoming very open about her sexuality and sexual orientation with her, using TikTok actually as like her outlet for expression. And it's been really amazing watching her husband be super supportive of it and not have that kind of like, well, it's cool between if we know about it, but don't, so it's great to hear that I like that idea of, doing the check-in. I mean, like, how you feeling? What's going on?
Yeah. Is there anything you need from me to make you feel more comfortable? Because I'm a bi activist, for God's sake, but I've been in situations where I felt like if I did use the B word or the pronouns of people I had recently dated, people were not going to want me around. And, not everywhere has a bi community,
Right.
Which is why, to me, doing virtual events, there's a lot of people who don't, we're really lucky. Connecticut has, 3 different bi groups, discussion groups. And, in New York, we have that. And also this sense of being anonymous, that nobody's scrutinizing us. Of course, if I was to kiss a woman in public or walk around holding hands with her, that would get some notice. But in New York, you feel anonymous, and you're not going to get like hate things scrawled on your apartment door. I know my son had a fear of that. And he made me promise him that I was not going to wear like queer t-shirts around the neighborhood, leaving our building and all that stuff. Cause like he was very well known in the neighborhood. He had red hair. He was tall. And, he was very comfortable with me. but not necessarily, the wider world being informed. So, I did stick to that for his sense of comfort, except on Pride Day, where I would wear a bi t-shirt with buttons everywhere, but maybe, maybe I would have something over that until I got in the subway.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe I wouldn't. But, the other days of the year, I just didn't flaunt it because, he's my kid.
Right.
If that's what he needs to feel comfortable, I didn't feel that was too much to give.
Well, speaking of kids, by a lot of means, it appears that the newest generation may be the biased of the generations. What do you think, or what would you say to parents or anybody who might be watching that has a younger person in their life that they care about, that they are trying to provide support to, that might have come out as bi plus or pansexual or is exploring their sexuality and sexual orientation? What is some advice you might give them to be supportive?
Well, first of all, if someone is asking that, that's really the first step in the right direction, because a lot of times when parents are confronted with that information that they didn't know, mm-hmm. Instead of thinking about their child and what they need, they're thinking about themselves. You're not conforming to my expectations of you, basically. And now I don't like you as much. And now I may not support you as much. I mean, kids can get those messages. Or now that we've talked about it, I never want to hear it again. And definitely don't bring any of your little friends around, because I can't handle this, either for religious reasons or just generalized homophobia, biphobia. I mean, sometimes parents are more offended by a kid who says they're bi than when they say they're gay. We were speaking at a PFLAG meeting. If you want to explain what PFLAG is.
PFLAG is I don't. They don't call themselves the parents of gays and lesbians. They have a more inclusive. They still call themselves PFLAG, but they have a more inclusive definition that they're using. I wonder if I can.
Yay!
Yeah, they recently updated it. I saw, because they don't use they don't consider PFLAG an acronym anymore. They just call themselves PFLAG as a name, and then they use a much more because the PFLAG network provides confidential peer support, education, advocacy to LGBTQ plus people, their parents and families, and their allies. That's okay. How they define themselves now.
Well, when we were there speaking, there was a parent there who was like, well, as long as I thought my son could only be attracted to someone of the same gender, I was prepared to accept that, because, otherwise they would never be able to have love or a relationship. But if you're telling me now they could choose, one or the other, they should make the right choice.
Right. My entire body just cringed.
Yeah. So
parents, don't say that. That is an example of things not to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough on people who are coming out to their family, because, I mean, some families members surprise you, and they're much more accepting than you thought that they would be. And other ones, it's horrible, or it's just sort of like, not too good. Mm-hmm. And, I've been going to bi group discussion meetings for I don't know, 30, I can't count that fast. At least 30 years. And, every week someone is talking about their tale of woe of having come out to their family and how crappy it was. So I forget. How do we get off on this question?
We're talking about what are the ways parents could maybe be more supportive and less of the bad biphobia language that they use to you and P flat.
Right. Well, the first thing is tell your kid that you will always love them no matter what, that this is something maybe you don't really understand. It's something that was sort of inculcated in you at church or synagogue or wherever, your parents, the school you went to, the sport you played, whatever played into it, but you don't understand it. But this is, you're my child. I love you. And, I think that's the first thing that needs to be said. And I'll always love you no matter what. And, I'm going to try to learn more about this because it's something I don't know anything about. I'm going to go online, and you tell me, feel free to tell me anything you want to tell me about it, about yourself that, I don't know. But I'd like to be able to get to know you better. Be a good listener instead of putting all your stuff on them. Be there for them. I think that's the most important thing, because if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to be there for them, if you're willing to support them and not threaten to pull their college tuition, or throw them out of the house, or tell them they're grounded for the rest of their life, then, if you're there for them, I think that even if your reaction isn't perfect, the child will feel like you're trying.
Yeah.
And like they still have your love, that you still have a family. And, that's really important to people.
Well, and I'm gonna take this as an opportunity just to do a shout out to the Bi Resource Center, which up on the screen right now is the Bi Resource website. That's biresource.org. I will say here at the Pride Center, we utilize so many of their resources. We have a bunch of their brochures and really great space. If you are a parent or a friend or a partner wanting to learn how to learn more, learn well, I think the Bi Resource Center is probably one of the best, if not the best, resource. I also want to really quickly, as a monosexual non-bi plus person, say something very quickly, that because something you said to me, like, really just, I'm still cringing from this parent's comment. But just to say that the idea that someone chooses who they love is a ridiculous situation. And you could be monosexual, you could bi plus, you could be pan, you can be asexual, any of the sexual orientations. Ultimately, you love who you love, and it doesn't, there's no choice. I mean, I guess there's some level of choice, but it's not like I'm choosing to fall in love with this, you know what I mean? I don't know how to phrase that in a way that is more articulate, because I'm really cringing at this parent's comment that, why didn't you choose the right one?
Well, a lot of people need a whole re-education, because, all they've been told about people who are queer is that it's bad.
Right.
They don't really know. That's all they know. So they have to be re-educated. Mm-hmm. And they have to be willing to be open. Yeah. And willing to love their child.
Well, and I think that is a universal experience for our whole community. And I think that that's an important lesson that we all need to take and love and own for ourselves. And And when we have the interactions with our fellow community members, keep that in mind, that it's the same experience when a friend suddenly changes their opinion too, and it shouldn't happen between anybody who you love, in my opinion.
Thank you. You're obviously a very strong ally to the bi community.
I will raise my hand and say I have made mistakes, as we all have. And I appreciate people like Sherry and Josh and you now and many other people that I care about deeply that have made sure that I stay on the right track and smack my hand when I get out of line or say something that unintentionally might not be well intended. So I firmly believe that learning from each other is the only way we can all coexist. So
very true. Very true. I mean, so I was very lucky because my parents were very liberal. You know, we lived in a New York City suburb, about an hour north of the city. And, you know, all my friends were hippies. This was back in the 70s, people. And, you know, so all we did, you know, when we would get together is talk about sex. I mean, what else are 16 to 18-year-olds interested in? So, you know, when I got home from a vacation and said, you know, I am now bisexual, they were like, high five. You know, and as far as my parents were concerned, well, I didn't want to tell them because, you know, parents think that you generally are of the opinion that their children shouldn't be having sex, even if they're, you know, of the age where you have raging hormones. So, you know, if I had told them I'm bisexual, that would have probably had to, where I would have had to confess that I was having.
You have to confess to the birds and the bees happening.
Yes. But you know, it was very cool with my friends. And as far as my parents, I mean, my father had a gay best friend before World War II. I think they joined the military together. And he married this guy's sister. So, you know, my dad he had another gay friend too, a work colleague, I think, who, you know, used to come over all the time for dinner. And my mother used to make little comments, just sort of apropos of nothing. And I'm like, gee, that kind of sounds like a bisexual comment to me. But she never used the B word.
Right.
You know, at that time, back in 1973 or 4 or 5. But before she died, I guess, you know, for about a year, me and my brother were having this long running, I don't know what you would call it, disagreement, you know, because I was saying, well, she never did it. She just like talked about it. And my brother was like, no, she did it. And so one time Mom and I were at the beach together. And so I just kind of put it to her, you know, we're having this long running thing. Can you settle it for us? And her answer was, you remember Laurelyn, don't you? And Laurelyn was a family friend who some guy who was a friend of the family brought around because they were dating for a while. And, you know, so that was the first thing I found out about my mother's real life bisexuality, as opposed to, you know, just flimsy statements.
So your brother was right, is what you're telling us.
Yeah, my brother was right. And I really am very happy that we had at least that one chance to talk about it, because less than a year later, she died of cancer. So we never had another chance, because it was, you know, birthdays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, more birthdays, Mother's Day, and death. So I feel really lucky that we at least had that one time where we were able to talk about it, and at least I know that about her, and how proud she would be of me. And if, you know, she was still around, I would have brought her to march in Pride March, and brought her to, you know, workshops that I did, or this. I'm sure she would have been tuning in.
Well, I don't want to presume belief systems, but I believe that people are with us long past their physical bodies. So she's here with us.
Well, she might be watching now, and my dad too.
Exactly. Well, we are getting close to our end of time, and we had one question come in from Sherry that I do want to ask. We're gonna rewind back a little bit to literature for a second. So, because Sherry asked us right as we were switching topics, so I don't want to miss this question, because I'm curious, which is, are there any particular topics that bi+ writers tend to write about? Is it romantic stories, fantasy, or true stories?
A little bit of all of the above, because we have a lot of categories. You know, we have anywhere between like 8 and 12 categories in any given year. And, you know, it's just exciting to open up a book, because a new book, because they're writing better. Now, I mean, the first year, it was a bit of a mess at the Lammy Awards. You know, what we were getting, they were kind of like more like first drafts to my mind. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Whereas now, I mean, there's so many, there might be some that are not as advanced in the writing. But, I mean, I remember I was looking where I had written a roundup article for the Gay and Lesbian Review, because, you know, on that given year, there were 3 YA books in 1 year, bisexual YA books. And I was like, oh my God, look at this. And like this year, there's 89.
Wow.
I mean, that we had in our outreach list. There might have been more that were sent in to us without any prompting, but 89, just that one category. And there was also like romance and spec fic, speculative fiction, which encompasses, you know, bi-fi, sci-fi, fantasy, paranormal, horror, all of that. Those are our most popular categories. There's genre categories, and people eat those up. So they always want more. So publishers tend to feel, well, you know, it'll be easier for me to sell one of these. But literary bi fiction also, you know, every year it's a little different as to, you know, which one has more books, but it's very exciting, but it's getting almost too much. I need help.
Well, it sounds to me what you're saying is bi literature is thriving.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But we want to make it thrive even more. And so therefore we want to do this conference. Did I mention the conference?
Yes, I did. And I'm very excited about this conference.
It's going to be next year in September on Bi Visibility Day, September 23rd.
Amazing.
or whichever weekend is closest. I think it's...
Let's see, when is next year's? Let me look. I will look online right now. I have a calendar right here.
I think it's like Saturday.
I think next year's Bi Visibility, I feel like it falls on like a Friday, actually. Let's see here. Wait, it would help if I went in the right direction, not to 2020, but to 2022, because that would be a lot more helpful, I imagine.
So if there's anyone who has ever done a conference / registration website before, we could really use a volunteer. We had one, but then things happened, and
it does this year fall on. So in 2022, Bi Visibility Day will be on a Friday because it's September 23rd. So it'll be the Friday next.
Okay, week. So maybe we'll bump it up to Saturday.
Well, Sheila, I'm just gonna raise my hand right now and commit to support any way you need technical support. We are very good technically here at the center.
Okay, I'll be following up with you on that.
Please do. Between Josh and I, we can solve most technical things you might need. not to volunteer Josh, but
fantastic. Yeah, that plus people to this won't be as hard to find, I don't think, but people to be the, the gatekeeper, so that the trolls can't come in and interrupt literary workshops with giant pictures of things you don't want to see.
Yes, exactly. Well, as we come to our final moments, what I always like to do is offer the floor to our speaker to say any final thoughts or messages you want to leave our viewers with, or future viewers who are not watching it live right now with. The floor is yours.
Well, one of the reasons why I did this was to give to authors who are making the effort to write bisexual literature. And okay, also brain freeze, vocabulary lost. I think when a community has a culture, that's when people really start to accept that they're an actual community. And since one of the tropes that always gets thrown at us is bisexual people don't exist, or bi men don't exist, or you're just greedy, or whatever else. When you have a culture, and when people are writing about the lived experience or the fantasized experience of people who are characters who are bi or pan or fluid, or there's so many different ones, can have a list of 20 easily, or queer, but in the bisexual ballpark of queer, or the same thing with two-spirit. Lost my way again. But that's why I wanted to put forth our culture and help it expand, help it get out there. First of all, so we as a community, I mean, when I first came into the bi community, there were like 13 books. I'm like, I gotta have more to read than 13 books, which is why I put together that whole anthology of bi short stories, because I felt like, okay, within one book, we could encompass so many different genres and time, historical, all the way to far in the future, and different ages of protagonists, and just so much diversity within our community to be shown in one book. And so I mean, there's a lot of people who can talk about bisexuality in general, but, you know, I'm trying to create this whole cultural thing, both for ourselves as a community and also so people from outside of our community can look at this and say, hey, those people have a culture. They must really exist. And we're also expanding now to include not just writers, but I mean, our readings have always been multi arts, but we've got a group meeting now, just sort of a monthly hangout session by people in any of the arts to hang out with each other. And I just got to set up a few things to make it work. And then we're going to start that up.
I might have to borrow that phrase that until people see you have a culture, you don't exist. I might have to steal that as like a sentence that I say a lot, because that just summarized so many things that I think every day when I fight with the state about queer representation in the arts and all of this other stuff. Yeah. Well, thank you, Sheila, for founding and doing the work that you do literally every day, and really uplifting the BI+ community's artists, which is, I've always said, artists are the soul of all of our communities, and you know, through the works that they create, it's what survives is the culture of any community. And so you have done tremendous things to preserve that, and I just love the drive behind what's happened in 10 years. I mean, it's incredible.
I think what happens is I get a little bored. Like, what new thing can I do?
Well, that's well, then you know, maybe we need to make you get bored more often. if this is what comes out of your boredom, it's a win for the whole community.
Well, you know, after the conference is done, and if I can get a little funding, hopefully, I want to put on a Frida Kahlo festival.
Oh, that sounds fabulous. I know 3 drag queens right now that will be there with bells on.
Sounds great. I am so obsessed with Frida Kahlo. I always have been since I first found out about her. I have stuff with her image on it all over the place, and she to me is like a bicon, because, you know, for the time that she lived in, she was pretty casual and out about her bisexuality, at least within her community. And she, you know, was willing to go there. Mm-hmm. Plus, she was so, you know, she also suffered from disability her whole life, from the time she was 18, her whole life. And the fact that she put those things in her paintings, you know, I really identify with her.
Well, I'll come to that festival for sure, because I equally love Frida Kahlo. So,
okay, we're gonna have to compare notes. Who has what books?
What pieces of art? I said, which pieces of art?
Yeah, well, I've got 2 Frida's clock.
Oh, that sounds fabulous.
Mexican bottle cap numbers alternating with images of her going around.
That's awesome. Somewhere in my my drawer of loose jewelry that I don't wear enough, there is a bracelet that a very good friend of mine in California made me, that is a series of Frida Kahlo beads with some Mexican prayer beads mixed in.
Oh God, I'm so jealous. I have to see this.
I have to find it for you to see it, but I will look for it. Well, again, thank you so much. And we are so glad we got to spend this time with you. I am super excited to partner with you on all of these conference ideas. We are, thanks to the work you're doing, we're all better for it with our knowledge about bi writers. And I know here at the Pride Center, we look at that list and we buy books for our library so that we can have more books in our library that are broadly representative of the community. So I just want to thank you on behalf of the Pride Center, the community here in New Haven, and Connecticut more broadly, since everybody gets to take advantage of it. And I'm going to I have the bi writers. Where is it? There we go. There it is. And there's the website, bywriters.org, if you want to get more information. And with that, let me do my closing remarks. So thank you so much for joining us for today's program. Remember, the center is here for you year-round with dynamic programming, support services, case management, and more. You can find out more about all of our programming at newhavenpridecenter.org. Including our next program in the Bi Plus Talk series. So keep an eye out. I think we might be taking December off just because it's so complicated with people's schedules. So we will be back with Bi Plus Talks in January and look forward to another exciting conversation with incredible people like Sheila today. So with that, thank you everybody for joining us.